I'm here with Davey Snedden of Sales Geek Scotland.
Yes.
So how did you get involved in the franchise? Let's start with.
Okay, so how did I get involved with sales? Originally, we were Sales Geek Glasgow to start with, and my business was Sales Geek Glasgow East. Peter was Sales Geek Glasgow West. Um, the answer to that actually lies in my previous role.
Mhm.
I've been 25 years senior leadership, commercial management, and engineering and industrial sales distribution, probably the bulk of my commercial career. Worked for companies, large global brand Worth, and then more latterly, they called Snap-on and Brammer. So worked with those companies. My home life was changing as my wife and I were starting a family, nearly 6 or 7 years ago now. So I wanted to step away from the commercial world. At the time, I was working for one of the biggest global brands in franchising, which was Snap-on Tools. So I was a franchisor. I was a kind of general manager for them running Scotland and Ireland. Wanted to get some time back. I was travelling too much and starting a young family. I wanted to run my own business, so I took a leap of faith and took a franchise with Snap-on. Ran that successfully for 4 or 5 years. Then became hungry to get back into kind of sales director world, but I still have the flexibility of running my own business, and that's when I came across Sales Geek, which were a new franchise that started 8 years ago down in Blackburn, and it was quite an early new embryonic franchise business. Because I'd obviously been a franchisor and a franchisee, and obviously had a background and understood myself in terms of business, but wanted to get back into more of a sales director position, but having the flexibility to run my own business. So I joined Sales Geek and started up as Sales Geek Glasgow East. Peter, my now business partner was Sales Geek Glasgow West. But really, from the outset, when we joined together, we were two different franchises next door to each other. We just said together, right, we're gonna cooperate. We're gonna work together. We're gonna call it Sales Geek Glasgow. They'll get two P&Ls over it and really run the business as one externally. And that's what we've done for the last couple of years, 18 months, and run it very well.
What made you decide to merge the businesses together as one then?
Well, we obviously ran Sales Geek Glasgow for, as I said, for the last 18 months. We've built a really good community. And we've obviously been successful with clients working in that partnership, and it's really about scaling that up now and coming across all of Scotland. We we found that some of the businesses that we were talking uh, to have a national footprint across Scotland was going to open some more doors for us. And then we felt if we can work with these businesses on a larger scale, and sort of partner with some other people, we'll be able to scale the model that we've done across Glasgow and really grow the business into more of a national footprint than not just regional.
Hmm. And when you kind of started doing all that, did you kind of anticipate it kind of coming into this big merger, or was that kind of just it's just something happened naturally? You guys go like, all right, actually, we should just join together.
Yeah. It's a difficult way to answer this, but, but being a visionary kind of leader, as soon as I came into business, I could see the opportunity across Scotland. When I got working with Peter, then I could see the opportunity of not just building it on my own, but building it with a business partner because we have different skill sets, we have different, visions, and but being able to work with somebody so closely like Peter and to be able to just have that partnership approach and be able to work with somebody, because I mean, anybody in a sales or business development role will tell you, even in the entrepreneur world on your own, it can be a lonely old place. But when you have somebody you work closely with and you can bounce off it, and share the and celebrate the success or share some of the burdens of being in business. That sometimes I feel has really helped Peter and I be able to shape that to be able to drive the vision forward, what we wanted. So yes, it's been part of the plan, but the more we got together, the more we worked together, the more we collaborated and it gelled, that's when we really found it could be a right fit to grow and scale.
Hmm. No, it's really interesting. And how has Sales Geek helped businesses from your well, what does exactly does it do that helps SMEs and startups if they are to take part in your courses?
Yeah, yeah, okay. We actually have about 18 different products or solutions and services that we can provide different customers and clients. Well, let's talk about three, because three covers it quite nicely, I think. So in terms of how we've helped people for the last kind of 18 months, we work a lot with startups and the small, the S of SMEs. I think with some of the incubator hubs we've got, we work alongside, for example, the Royal Bank of Scotland Accelerator Hub, where we help businesses who are just forming and starting and be able to give them some strategic direction and really we use our kind of mentoring service to help them and mentor people in that startup phase. Um, well, that brings us through mentoring. We also do a lot of sales training, which can vary from some of the free sales clubs that we do in Glasgow, Paisley, and Edinburgh. That can go right through to doing some large PLC training with large businesses who have really established sales teams. So there's different sales training services that we can provide. Probably the third product that's we use a lot of time as our part-time sales director, your sales director it's called. So we go in as a part-time or fractional sales director and be able to help businesses to execute. They might not be at the level where they need somebody in there full time
Hmm.
to look after the sales team, or they want to bring somebody in to execute that new phase of growth for them.
Hmm.
So we go into a lot of time with our part-time sales director. So the three services that we kind of regularly talk about is part-time sales director, sales training, and sales mentoring.
All right, it's an interesting one because of you have a really good opportunity to actually take a hold of the market if you do it well, but also how do you deal with the challenges of the fact that you have 18 courses and is it just you and Peter or is there other people helping you? How do you kind of deal
Yeah,
with
there's
the
there's
scale?
four of us. There's four of us in the Glasgow team at the moment.
Hmm.
But we're hoping to scale that as we obviously kind of open the door. Probably the next phase will probably be Edinburgh. We'll maybe move up the country, Fife and Dundee and then Aberdeen. So, so there is four of us at the moment. And in terms of product range that we don't promote, we'd never promote 18 courses or 18 products that we have. That's just in a repertoire. What we do is the easiest way to describe it to you is it's about the discovery call when we talk to a client or a client comes to us. Because sometimes when potential customer comes to us, they don't know what their sales challenge is, or they don't know the route out of that. So it's all about the discovery session that we can do with a customer, understanding exactly what it is, their goals, their vision, and how what where they're either the hiccup in the road that they want to fix or the next tranche of growth they're looking to unlock. So we really start to kind of explore that with them, and then we can then mold the right service or product to be able to help them to grow really.
Hmm. Well, that makes perfect sense. So if you, when it comes to like sales gigs, so like expanding into other regions like Edinburgh, is that like a franchise that someone would buy it, or is that more of your own, literally your own office kind of going as part of your Sales Gig Scotland brand? How would that
Yeah.
work? Is it?
Well, yeah, I think at the moment we've got a couple of different options really.
Hmm.
People can come and join a business as part of a franchise and buy kind of a territory. We have couple of different options that we can do that with. One of our guys who's already joined us has come on as staff member as well.
Hmm.
So it really depends on the opportunity. We have different options available, which but for me it's more about the right person to
Okay.
bring in, and then what suits them and what's because we've had some other people join us in the past who have other businesses already who maybe can't join us full time, but they want to kind of come in and utilize some of our capabilities to help their customers. So there's different ways that we can do it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And in November 21st, you have an event at Hampden Park. Can you tell me what exactly would a business expect from this event? And, if
Yeah.
I was to attend it, I'm a small business, what would I hope to, I guess, come back home with that I can learn with my business?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, the Hampton event on the 21st, we're bringing probably 250 to 300 businesses together. And the key theme of this is growth building, growth through collaboration. So one of the key areas that Peter and I, how we've grown the Sales Geek Glasgow business, is working with strategic partners and sponsors. They've been able to bring their network to us and our network to them. And a lot of things that we've been able to do is to offer some free events. So, for example, at this event, it's absolutely free to join, so there's no cost outlay. We have got some keynote speakers coming along. So we have Mike Scott, who recently sold a multi-million pound business and is a real authority in the entrepreneurial world in Scotland. He's coming to do a talk and give some key takeaways on how he grew and scaled and sold on his business. And then we have Ross, who is a really it's a really amazing story that Ross has in terms of his journey through life. He's had some trying and telling times in his life and career. And he tells the story about how he's walked through the challenges and then obviously grown businesses on the side of it.
Hmm.
And it's now kind of again a kind of keynote speaker in that. So we're going to be having a couple of keynote speakers, and then we'll be delivering a panel workshop at the end where somebody who comes along, no matter whether they're a small, medium, or large business, they'll be able to come along and ask some panelists, some specialist panelists in business, um, some open questions, and try and kind of look at different ways of how they can grow and scale through collaboration.
So it's kind of like a growth sort of networking event, really, essentially, more because you're not really paying for anything, but you're getting skills from it. It's kind of like an
Yeah, yeah,
declarative
we're
sort
calling it the growth seminar.
of growth
So
seminar, yeah.
Scottish Growth Seminar. So yeah, I mean, what how this has come around, John, is every month we do what we call Sales Club, which is 2 hours of free sales training. We've got one in Glasgow, Paisley, and Edinburgh, where people come along and we've built a community. And so people come and feel they're not going to be pressurised, they're not going to be sold to. It's an environment they want to learn in, and they come and we give away a couple of hours of free sales training on a theme. And we've been running this now for well over a year. Back in the summer, we ran a leadership accelerator where we got about 180 businesses together, which was a bit more of a sales club, as a summer sales club special. But Peter and I wanted to do something to mark the start of Sales Geek Scotland. We wanted to bring businesses across Glasgow and Scotland together to kind of celebrate the new business, but also give something back. So that's why we've got some keynote speakers in, and hopefully people can come there. We've also got our partners and sponsors who are exhibiting at the event, so that they also get the chance to meet, greet, and learn from some of our partners and sponsors as well.
I'm here with Peter Barclay of Sales Geek Scotland. Okay, so when we look at sales geek journey, what was it for yourself? How was it compared? Because I spoke to Davey, he probably has a completely different journey from yourself.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think in some ways very different, but yeah, very similar. I went to good school. I have lots of friends, still in contact with sort of 12, 14 guys I went to school with. Most are all doctors, vet, very academic careers. And I was never that boy. I was the slightly disruptive boy that sat at the back of the class. Very quickly, I worked out I could talk myself into trouble really quickly. And I could talk myself out of it just as quick, which is the fundamental of ultimately sales. So I went into a small family business. We grew that family business quite rapidly over 12 years. I then went into corporate life, where I managed quite a large sales team, international sales team. I then went into a small family business and did a bit of consultancy in between time, but found out that I was actually really good at selling. And my roles would always be in kind of general management and sales basis. Um, and everybody had always said to me, "Why don't you start your own business again?" But I never quite knew what in. Then I was approached by Sales Geek to say, start a business selling sales. And I was like, that makes sense because it's not a hobby. It's not something I enjoy doing that I want to ruin by being paid for it. So I was the first geek in Scotland 3.5 years ago. Um, and yeah, progressed since then. So now 3.5 years later, we've got Sales Geek Scotland, partner in business, Davey, that I'd never really intended to do when I started Sales Geek. And we've got a team of guys now covering the whole of Scotland. And we run sales club across 3 cities, and we've got the Hampden event coming up, which is great. So real upward trajectory, and I'm a strong believer in sales that when you get momentum, you just have to put your foot to the gas and continue it.
Yeah. How does one sell
So
sales? It
really
seems very
simply,
counterintuitive in amazing ways. Is it kind of like training then?
yeah. So we do fractional sales directorships. We work in great tracking process from a sales director perspective. We then have sales training, which is about upskilling people. Um, and then we have mentorship, which is about accountability and getting things done. Um, and for us, it's based around the way the world sees sales and the sales. And everybody thinks of sales as being this kind of arrogant, pushy, uh, person who's only interested in earning commission and selling whatever they can for the highest price they possibly can. And because of that, lots of small businesses distance themselves from sales because they don't believe that's what they do. Um, I was in one of my first meetings with a business down in Ayrshire who'd grown from nothing to 10.5 million in the space of sort of 8 or 9 years. And when I sat and met the owner and MD, he turned around to me and said, "Look, before we even start this conversation, we've got to realize that we don't sell." That's a really interesting concept. You've grown a business from nothing to 10.5 million revenue, and you've never sold a product. Fascinating. And well, yeah, we kind of have sold, but not in the traditional sense.
Hmm.
And it's just that perception of sales. If people think about always really pushy salespeople when they think about sales, but in actual fact, sales is great. It's about building a relationship, building trust, using questioning in a constructive way to enable you to get to the root cause of the problem. And your customers generally don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what that problem is. But as a product expert, it's your job to take them on that journey and give them the solution that works for them. And sometimes that means saying no. Sometimes it means your product or service isn't right. Um, but for us, that's how you build sustainable sales. It's about how you build a brand, and it's about how you get customers coming back to you. But for us, selling sales is first of all about changing the way the world sees sales and making people realize that everybody is a salesman. I always say, I have a 3-year-old, a 7-year-old, and I'm married. Um, I do more selling at home than I do in my work life. And you use negotiation all the time in your life. Um, and everybody will use sales at some point. If you apply for a job, you sell yourself. If you advertise for a job, you sell your business. If you manage a team, you sell your strategy, your ideas, your whatever you want to do. If you're a teacher, you have to persuade people to learn. That's a part of sales. And for us, sales is so encompassing if you think about it on that basis that you're just taking problem solving and taking it to the next level. Um,
So
and
it's,
frankly, you look at the way the economy is and things like is
yeah.
now, as more people embraced it in a positive way and got businesses to grow, um,
So it's kind
we
of
would be in
like
a lot better position.
it's kind of like rebranding the idea of sales from this being these shark who you kind of associate with like these films and stuff. You see these salesmen are always like dodgy sharks, shark sellers
Yep.
trying to sell the most dodgiest object possible. The reality is
Yeah, yeah.
nothing like that.
It's nothing like that. I mean, in our sales club, one of the first things that we talk about is sales for non-sales people. And we introduce a concept of Bob. And Bob is the best salesperson in the world. Not the person who makes the most money or sells the most product, but the salesperson you'd recommend to your mother-in-law or to your best friend, and you would love to go back and buy a product off again. And if you look at the attributes of what that Bob has, is great at relationships, he's honest, he's a problem solver, he's an industry expert, he's got product knowledge, all of that stuff. And that's the fundamentals of good sales. So for us, changing that, and it leads on to why we do Sales Club and why we do Hampden, because Sales Club is an event we run now across three cities in Paisley, Glasgow, and Edinburgh. We have around about 130 people coming every month for that. Then we give free sales training. So we train people for free. So how far from that pretty salesman is a business that gives their knowledge away for free? Completely different spectrum. So that's part of the reason why we do it, because it's the first thing people wouldn't expect salespeople to do.
Yeah, no, makes sense.
For us, it's really important from the brand perspective.
Yeah, makes sense. And when it kind of comes to this, is that kind of part of the reason this idea behind sales and when you look at the economy and the way the ecosystem is kind of fragmented, is that kind of the ideas behind the growth seminar event that you're doing in Hamden?
100%. Um, the interesting thing for us as sales geeks, we're business owners and we're salespeople. And also we work for our clients from a sales directorship perspective or from a sales training perspective. So we almost have hats in all the different realms of business. Um, and we found that the business support network out there is very attractive. There's lots of specialized networking events that are really good for kind of minority groups to fight their own cause and give them safe rooms to be in. It's really important. There's loads of organizations out there that to support businesses in their own individual way in the individual businesses they need to support. Um, but when I started our business in Scotland, I found it very, very difficult because it was very fractured, it was very siloed. And you go to these organizations to ask for support. Some would just want to sell you membership and then give you no support. Some would want to try to help you as much as they possibly could. But if you didn't fit the mold where they could help, the conversation finished and there's no signposting for the organization. So us, the seminar that we're running at Hampden, which hopefully we'll get 300 people there, is about forging that collaboration and making people be able to be in the room where business support is. And there's no such thing as a competitor. Everything you do, you should be able to understand who you do it for, why you do it for, and what that USP is and what your ICP is. But the reality is other people offer sales training and be in that room. That's completely fine to me because what they do is different from us. The way they do it's different. The charges they charge is different, and the personality might be different as well. So for me, being able to create that platform where anybody can support businesses is a strength. And I find it really amazing with small businesses when times get tough and things become difficult. They land up being very isolated. They go into their office, they work as hard as they possibly can, they try to take off their priority list, they deal with all the fires. But they always look inwardly and try to sort the problems out themselves. But in actual fact, the best business opportunities that I've ever had in my life have come from looking out of your business and going to collaborate with people and meet people and speak to people. And they could be competitors. But that collaboration is where opportunities come from, and opportunities you don't expect. So for us, it's twofold for the event we run. It's try to give that support network to small businesses, but also develop a sense of community, a sense of collaboration, and get people talking about growth. Then we had, in lunch there with a couple of our keynote, and we all talked about our, the best opportunities that ever came to us from the businesses, and none of them were planned. All of them come from a random conversation you have with somebody at some point. We want to foster that community too.
Mm. It's an interesting one because that's kind of the take that some businesses have, and it's the one of the issues that I guess some businesses have is understanding is the fact that sometimes your competitor actually isn't your competitor; they're your greatest collaborator, and because their journey is completely different from your journey, and
Yeah.
and what they're doing is completely different from what you're doing, even though it's the same product, they'll have a different approach, and there's always a market for two people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you talk about the Simon Sinek situation of your why, um, and for me, that's a huge strength. What you do as an actual physical service or product quite often is very difficult to differentiate yourself from somebody else. Nine times out, 9 times out of 10, the way you can differentiate yourself from your competitors and how you deliver it. So, and that's what truly kind of differentiates you from different businesses. And when our clients we get paid for, we do work for, one of the first things I always say to them is if you can't put yourself in the room with your biggest competitors and talk about how you're different from them and justify the price and the charge that you charge against them, then you really have to look at your offer and think about how you do things differently. Because if you're not brave enough to stand in that room and you can't stand in that room and justify your price, then you're overselling,
Mm.
which goes back to our changing the way the world perceives sales. It's
Yeah.
selling things that are good value for money and solve problems.
It kind of then goes back to the question of do you think when you're looking at it, these problem is due to the cultural aspect that's kind of gone taking time has kind of gone into the fragmented ecosystem, or what do you think's kind of led to this fracture?
In the business ecosystem, I think, you know, you look at how the world's evolved and the business world has evolved and challenges had over 20, 30 years. There'll be quite a lot of groups probably will disagree with me, but as a business community, we are so much more diverse than we were 20, 30 years ago. The playing field, although not equal, is a lot more equal than it was 20, 30 years ago. So I think we have made strides forward, and that wouldn't have happened if there wasn't individual organizations looking after their individual communities. Um, but for me, there's an interesting journey there about at what point do we start talking about business professionals as being business professionals,
Mm.
irrespective of what size of business they're in, what sector they're in, you know, what ethnic background they are, what sex they are. At some point in time, we have to start remove those labels and just talk about people as being business professionals, because there's barriers all over the place at the moment. You could be a chief exec of a multi-billion-pound organization or a sole trader, and both of them will feel like they experience some form of barrier. But the reality is, we're just all business professionals. And if we can't treat everybody equally and give everybody an equal voice and have the same kind of gravity in what we can say and get people listening to us, then as a community, we won't grow.
That makes sense. And with the Growth Summit, what sort of would you, if as a small business, what would you expect to kind of come back with going, right, okay, this is what I learned, or this is who I met? Is there some sort of thing or the
Yeah,
guarantee, or is it more of a, you're coming,
I
you
think
learn?
one thing with all our sales clubs, and one thing that we really proud ourselves is one, we create diverse rooms and safe rooms, and we give voice for everybody in the room, and we create a real energy within the room. So I think anybody that's been to a sales pub event or a sales geek event will definitely see a place that you can come and get re-energized and refocused. Um, and a lot of that is about that peer-to-peer. It's understanding other people have the same problems as you and other people have solved them and generating that energy. So I think that's really important. We have two fantastic keynote speakers in Mike Scott and Ross Anderson, completely different stories. But everybody goes through different mental challenges, different issues. Um, and it's how you respond to those issues is the important thing. So for us, it's to give people um, the belief that they can achieve anything, and the belief that no matter how bad things are, things can get better. Um,
Mm.
but for us, that is the two main key points: is re-energize yourself and give yourself a bit of focus. Um, and we love it. The events that we create, we do create that to community feel. We have 4 or 5 groups that kind of offset what we've done, and we
Mm.
have teams of people who meet up for lunch and have become friends because of the events that we have. So for those businesses, I think it's really, really important for people to collaborate with each other and to build relationships and start to create some friendship.
Mm.
And it's one thing that I'm really passionate in. I remember when I got my first sales directorship position, um, I'd been in the team and then promoted to managing the team. I then was stuck between the board and the sales team, and it was just during the financial crash, the one 15, 20 years ago. So it was really a tough place in construction industry and sales. And I had no peers to speak to. I had no friends to speak to. So I feel that collaboration and that creating that peer group that understand you and support you, it doesn't actually matter what role you're in and what size of business you're in. That's really important. Whether you're a sole trader or a startup, whether you're a director of a multi-million pound business, or if you're a chief exec of a 1 billion pound organization. Yeah, we're all human, so we all have that mental challenge and that self-doubt and that imposter syndrome feeling.
Mm.
So creating yourself a peer group that supports you is a really important thing for us to do.
It's a big challenge and exciting offering, especially with the what's going on. And so it must be one of these events you look forward to running each year, seeing that seeing the conversations and I guess potentially seeing the results of those conversations and hearing about it, especially that you put it together just as a thing of hoping it will do what you're wanting it to do.
And what the interesting thing, it kind of the growth seminar and the accelerator event that we ran in June, and what we'll continue to do on the bigger scale at Hamden, and also our sales club, is actually completely a testament to what I'm saying about the collaboration comes when you don't expect it. You know, when we did our first sales club in Glasgow, we had a room of 25 people last July, so it's only 15 months ago. Um, we never thought that Hamden approached us in about April and May of the following year, so that was 8 months later. Um, would we have thought that our national stadium would have come to us and said, hold an event in our national stadium for free? Not a chance. In 8 months, we never thought we'd get there. And even then, when we ran that event in June, it was a one-off. It was something that we never really intended to repeat. But we roll on to November. We now have 3 sales clubs in 3 cities across the whole of Scotland. We now run Sales Geek Scotland rather than Sales Geek Glasgow as we were 5, 6 months ago. And now we're running an event at Hampton again within 6 months, which now has around about 300 people booked for us.
Mm.
We never thought that would happen. But by talking to people and collaborating with people, it kind of builds momentum. And the big change from the one in June to the one in November is we have people like the Federation of Small Businesses, the IOD, Scottish Business Network, NatWest, RBS, Scottish London Business, the Asian Business Chamber, a whole pile of really, really big organizations who are bought into what we're doing and supporting us to do that. And that's only come about by sticking your head above the parapet and starting to talk to other organizations, and they buy into what we're trying to do. And we really hope that that will continue. Um, and now being salespeople, because we're on that wave, we're now starting to set ourselves some targets to say, well, how often should we do this? How big could it be? We start to dream about the different venues we could hold it in and where around the country, because I think it's gaining that momentum.
Mm.
The great thing for us, we are a commercial entity. We need to make profit. We do have to get paid. But the brand awareness we're creating, the momentum we're creating from this is generating us profitable business that's growing rapidly as well. 2 years ago, there was one of us in Scotland. Now there's 4 or 5 of us. And we plan to be a team of 10, 12 in the next 2 years. So Richard, through the founders, so he always said to me, there's businesses in the world that we do, we spend our entire life trying to find references and case studies and ways of demonstrating how good we are at what we do. And he said something to me that really resonates with me. He said, in the industry that we're in this sort of professional services and sales growth business, the best case study and the best testimonial we could ever create is our own business journey. And if people can see how we can grow our own business, they'll want us to help them grow their business. And that's exactly what we're doing.
Mm. It's incredible when you think about it. And then the opportunity it does to create the conversations that aren't really happening. And when you kind of look at your journey and part of the reason behind the actual setting up the event, what would you say were probably the biggest factors, in setting it up? What would you say were the biggest sort of pain points? You're going, well, we really need something that needs to solve this because this is serious. What was that for you?
I mean, for me, there's 2 points to my sales geek career that really resonate with me and really kind of maybe the point where I realized that things needed to change and I could be a part of that change. One was when I started my own business. It's not the right platform to talk about it, but I started sales geek with no plan. I had no savings. My daughter was 3 weeks old. I just moved house. I couldn't get a good job. And I woke up one day with no paycheck and went, what am I going to do and what have I done? So I reached out to every single business organization, every single network that I possibly could. Some were great, some were awful, some didn't even respond. So that for me was, we're a nation, and Scotland has always been a great nation of entrepreneurialism and innovation and ideas and creativity. I mean, some of the inventions as a country, you think about the size of Scotland that we have created and we've given to the world over the years, it's been amazing. And as a country, we need to help those people who want to go and make the risk and start their own business. We need to give them every single platform and every single bit of help we possibly can. And I think in Britain, especially in the last few years, in some ways, we take more pride in knocking people down and building them up. I think that needs to change. So that was definitely part for me of starting my own business. And I thought, it's got to be easier than this. And then 18 months into my business, I was in a good business. We were making lots of money, but I hated it. Really stressful, really unpleasant. And it was one of these moments where I needed to pivot my business to make it into what I wanted it to be. Once again, I went out and looked outside my world, my sales geek business, to find help, and really struggled. And I was incredibly lucky in the fact that Davey, my business partner, came into my geek world, unannounced and unplanned, and started a franchise business next to mine. And we landed up supporting each other and geeking each other. Very quickly, in the space of 2 or 3 months, we shared our deepest moments and darkest moments, and built a real friendship, and then landed up being in business with each other. To that point as well, I was really lucky that I had this other entity that came into my life to form Salesforce Glasgow and now form Salesforce Scotland. Um, if I hadn't had that external help put on me, I don't know where I'd be. If I was honest, I'd have probably quit, and I'd probably be back in some corporate world, living in hotels, earning good money, traveling the world, probably working for some English business, because that's, in my profession, if you want to earn lots of money, that's where you need to go, because there isn't the type of businesses that can support you. So, and I think in the Scottish nation, that's something that's it's quite shocking, the amount of people I speak to in that sort of fractional world who have run really good businesses. I mean, Mike Scott, who is one of our keynotes, where he started hydrogen, grew that really, really well. And yeah, so, and yeah, he talked about his journey in two parts. One, when he started hydrogen, and two now, a vastly experienced person that can bring so much knowledge and help to businesses. Um, But if he was financially driven, had to look at a kind of return on investment about what he was going to earn and how much work he would do, he would be working in England, not in Scotland. I think as a country, we need to resolve that. We need to keep our best talent in Scotland to help Scottish businesses grow. And
Mm.
I'm not a Scottish nationalist in any way at all, but I think we've all got to look after the place we live in, and if we really want to prosper, we want to level up, and we want to create a community where there's money and education, then we need to keep that skills in the country to help Scottish businesses grow.
Yeah. It's a complicated one when you look at the ev economic environment, trying to keep the talent in, and the current policies, which many would say are doing the opposite of that. But that's not really the discussion for
That's
this
a,
one.
that's a bigger discussion, but I think there's a whole host of things that can help that, and I think giving people the platform and the support network to enable them to grow businesses. If it's an easy place to grow businesses, then people will stay, irrespective of everything else. Um, it's when it's a hard place to grow a business, and also you don't get the rewards, and why would you do it here?